This video provides guidance on runway incursion mitigation and prevention by the Office of Airports at the Federal Aviation Administration. Refer to the resources at the end of this video for additional guidance on runway incursion mitigation and prevention. Refer to Advisory Circular 150/5300-13 for specific design standards. Images in this video are graphical representations only and are not to scale. Discussion topics include Introduction to Runway Incursions, examples of taxiway geometries with runway incursion risks, and the importance of airport planning in preventing runway incursions. The Federal Aviation Administration defines a runway incursion as any occurrence at an airport involving the incorrect presence of an aircraft, vehicle, or person on the protected area of a surface designated for the landing and takeoff of aircraft. Examples of runway incursion include an aircraft crossing a runway hold line without clearance from air traffic control, also known as a pilot deviation or PD, or a vehicle entering the runway safety area without clearance, also known as vehicle pedestrian deviation or VPD. FAA studies and experience demonstrate that taxiway geometry is a contributing factor in many runway incursion events. The FAA's Runway Incursion Mitigation, or RIM, program identifies airport locations with a history of runway incursions and the presence of problematic geometries. Statistics show that airfield modifications at RIM locations have resulted in an average decrease in runway incursions of more than 80%. This section presents common examples of taxiway geometries with runway incursion risks and illustrates best practices for airfield design to mitigate the potential for runway incursions. This video addresses these 6 common taxiway geometries shown that are often associated with runway incursion risks. The resources listed at the end of this video describe additional runway incursion issues and mitigation strategies not included in this video. Taxiways connecting an apron directly to a runway may lead to confusion when a pilot typically expects to encounter a parallel taxiway, but instead encounters the runway. This loss of situational awareness is particularly prevalent when there is a short distance between the apron and the runway, as often occurs at smaller airports. In this scenario, a pilot leaving the apron may mistakenly proceed directly onto or across the runway, resulting in a runway incursion. To minimize the chance of runway incursions, design taxiways to prevent direct access from the apron areas to the runway. This improved taxiway configuration requires a pilot to make a 90-degree turn onto a parallel taxiway and a second turn onto a connecting taxiway to access the runway. The additional turns and taxiway signs in this configuration enhance the pilot's situational awareness. Direct runway access is a similar runway incursion risk for airports that do not have a parallel taxiway. In this scenario, provide a no-taxi island on the apron to avoid direct runway access, forcing the pilot to make at least one turn before accessing the runway. Wide pavement areas at a runway intersection result in placement of airfield signs, marking, and lighting far from a pilot's view, thus limiting the pilot's view of critical visual cues. This increases the risk for pilot loss of situational awareness, particularly under low visibility conditions. The loss of situational awareness increases the risk of a runway incursion and risk of wingtip conflict due to pilot judgmental taxiing of aircraft. This improved holding bay design channelizes taxiing aircraft by providing individual bypass taxiways with no taxi islands. This configuration allows for standard elevated runway hold position signs and edge lights, and enhances pilot situational awareness. Runway thresholds in close proximity may confuse pilots, resulting in runway incursions and wrong runway takeoffs or landings. In this example, A pilot who stops at the runway hold line and is given clearance for takeoff on runway 18 may mistakenly see the adjacent runway 22 threshold and take off on runway 22. Modifying airfield marking, signage, and lighting prevents the pilot from accessing runway 22 and using the wrong runway for takeoff. Where practical, reconfigure airfield geometry or move runway thresholds farther apart, depending on operational requirements. An acute angle intersection reduces a pilot's field of view of the runway, thus making it difficult for a pilot to see an aircraft operating on the runway. Acute angle entrance taxiways also create an undesirable condition of locating hold position signs within the RSA limits. An acute angle also reduces a pilot's situational awareness because it does not match the expectations for a standard runway entrance, as the angle creates a wide expanse of pavement. To increase the pilot's field of view and increase pilot situational awareness, design runway taxiway intersections at 90-degree angles. If a true 90-degree angle with the runway is not practical, it is acceptable to adjust the angle such that the critical aircraft is plus or minus 15 degrees from a 90-degree angle when at the hold line. Similarly, acute angled crossing taxiways limit the pilot's field of view of aircraft landing or taking off from the runway. While a standard 90-degree intersection provides the pilot with a clear line of sight to both runway ends. Runway hold lines not located at the typical location on the 90-degree entrance taxiway introduce higher risks for runway incursions. Sometimes, hold line locations are on the parallel taxiway. This may be when the separation between the runway and taxiway is not sufficient. In this scenario, the pilot encounters the hold line in an unexpected location and may inadvertently proceed past the hold line, resulting in a runway incursion. When there is adequate runway taxiway separation and the runway hold line location is on the standard entrance taxiway, pilots encounter the hold line where expected, with full view of the runway and both runway ends. An aligned taxiway has a center line aligned with a runway center line. Aligned taxiways represent an elevated risk of runway incursions due to the potential for taxiing aircraft to move directly from the taxiway onto the runway and into a direct line with departing or landing aircraft. To mitigate the risk of runway incursions, one method converts the aligned portion of the taxiway to a blast pad with a 90-degree entrance taxiway to access the runway end. The best way to prevent runway incursions is through proper airport planning and optimizing airfield layouts. This planning takes place during the airport master planning process, or the airport layout planning phase of an airport improvement project. A high-speed exit taxiway that provides a direct route from one runway to another runway introduces elevated runway incursion risk, particularly for closely spaced runways. In this case, an aircraft exiting on the high-speed exit encounters two hold lines in close proximity and may proceed past the hold line for the adjacent active runway, resulting in a runway incursion. Proper, long-term airfield planning and design provides sufficient separation distance between runways for a parallel taxiway, eliminating direct runway access from the high-speed exit. This schematic airport layout plan shows several best airport planning practices that help prevent runway incursions. As discussed in this video, the optimal airfield layout provides 90-degree runway taxiway intersections. Eliminating direct access from the aircraft parking apron to the runway. Providing a full-length parallel taxiway to prevent using the runway for taxiing when there is no parallel taxiway and prevent direct access from one runway to another. Providing dual parallel taxiways at busier airports to enhance airfield capacity and departure queuing. minimizing or avoiding cross taxiways crossing a runway in the middle third where aircraft speeds on the runway are greatest, providing cross taxiways in the outer thirds of the runway where aircraft speeds are lower, and providing end-around taxiways or EATs at busy airports to reduce frequency of runway crossings, thus reducing runway incursion risk. These reference materials provide additional guidance on runway incursion prevention and mitigation. Visit www.faa.gov to find these related documents, videos, and airport design tools. For additional information on runway incursion mitigation and prevention, contact the FAA's Office of Airports. The FAA appreciates your interest. Safe flying!